Hey everyone, my name is Jessie Jennings and I'm a content creator here at Plaid, and welcome to Let's Paint Live, our monthly paint party where we teach you to paint a full painting in just about an hour. So today we're going to be learning this really cute little pink roller skate painting. So it's perfect if you've seen the Barbie movie lately. You've probably seen tons of Barbie stuff around, and this one was inspired by that. So it's great for summer, it's really fun. So let's get started. For supplies for this painting, I have an 8x10 canvas. And instead of that for tonight, it's very similar, but I'm going to be using one of our Plaid wood surfaces. So this cradled wood canvas you can purchase on plaidonline.com. So you can see the inside part is the same as this, so it'll be the same size. I just have an added frame on this one that I'm just going to paint a solid color. And then, of course, as always, we have our Let's Paint Live kit. So this kit comes with 24 folk art matte acrylic colors. So it's pretty much every color you could possibly want. And with this kit, you can watch any of our paint nights and teach along, whether it's our Let's Paint Live series the first Thursday of every month, or it's our Monday night paint nights. This kit will be able to get you through all of those paintings. So speaking of that, make sure to go check out plaidonline.com/Let's Paint, and you can see all of our previous videos and all of our Let's Paint Live series. So that's the kit we'll be using. I've got a water basin back here. I've got the 10-piece Artist Variety brush set, and this comes with the kit, so it's a really great value. And then I've also got some paper towels and some palette paper, and then I do have a hair dryer as well. So just to keep it about an hour, we might do some drying of the layers. So here is a hair dryer, so we'll be doing a little bit of that tonight. As always, we have Steven here in the studio, so he'll be moderating our class tonight. If you have any questions or comments, please make sure to pop them on the chat. We'd love to hear where you're from, if you're painting along with us, if you've seen the Barbie movie, if you liked it. We would love to hear from you. So make sure to go ahead and comment, and Steven will either answer your questions or relay those comments to me.
Absolutely. Sorry, full disclosure, I have not seen the Barbie movie yet. I really want to, but when I first saw this painting, I was in love with it. I love like the roller skate as a vase for the flowers. It's really cool. I love the colors, so I'm excited to get going.
Awesome. Thanks, Steven. You have to see the Barbie movie because it was actually very good.
Awesome.
I'm not biased at all. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to paint our roller skate shape. So I'm going to walk you through exactly how to make the shape. If you feel very, very intimidated by it, you could always go online and print out a picture of a roller skate and trace it or transfer it. But I think you'll be able to draw it yourself along with me. So I'm going to grab some of my aqua here. I'm going to put that on my palette. And then I'm also going to grab some wicker white. And again, these are all from the kit. And put that on my palette. And I'm going to start painting my shape with this mint color, but we're going to mix it. So I've just got a small brush here. This is a number 10 flat. I'm going to get mostly white with a little bit of aqua to get this minty color. I'm just going to add a little bit at a time. And then I'm also going to grab some yellow. I'm realizing as I'm mixing it, it's pretty cool, and I remember that I put a tiny dab of yellow in it to get it kind of that greeny mint, spearmint color. Oh, so I'm going to put a dab of yellow. This one still has the seal in it. And this is daffodil yellow. Put a little bit of that in there. But you see now we're getting that minty color that we're looking for. Okay, so whenever I mix paint with my paintbrush, you can see there's a ton of paint on there now. So I don't want all of that on my brush when I go to start painting. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe that off, and I'm going to rinse it, and then I'm going to reload my brush with paint. And what I mean when I say load my brush, I mean go ahead and add the amount of paint onto my brush that I want. So I'm going to load my brush up. You can see here you don't want to get all the paint into the ferrule, so that's how we reloaded. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to paint that outline. So whenever I'm sort of mapping out my composition, and by composition I mean where everything is laid out on my canvas, I kind of start with the edges and make sure that I don't start, painting my roller skate and then go too far over and spill off the edge. So I kind of make dots, from the edges so I know the distance apart that each of my lines are going to be. So I'm going to start with the heel here. So I want to be about an inch from the left side of my canvas here. So we'll say maybe a third of the way up your canvas and then about an inch over from the edge, I'm just going to paint my little heel. And again, we're just mapping it out. We're going to paint over this whole section. This is just so we know where our lines are going to be. Now I'm going to do the toe. So it's going to be about an inch from the right, and it's going to be slightly lower than our heel because you can see we have a little bit of a heel here on our skate. So I'm going to go about here. I said about an inch, but I ended up going over. So I want to make sure I go back in a little. That's going to be our toe. And then up here at the top, it's going to be a little bit further into our canvas than our heel was. And it's going to be about a third of the way from the top. So I'm going to mark it right about there. That's going to be the boot, the top of the boot of our skate. And then the line is going to go about 2.5 inches. So I'm just going to draw that line. So you can see here we have kind of all of the edges of our skate. And this is a good map for drawing this shape. So now I'm just going to kind of connect the lines. I'm going to do the sole. I'm going to kind of go down. And then the back, it's kind of going to go down and then get that little curve for the heel of the boot. And then the front, of course, is a big slope to meet the toe of our skate here. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fill in this shape.
Jesse, I think you brought it up before, but I think it's worth mentioning again. Somebody asked, no line drawing, question mark?
No line drawing. A lot of times for our paint nights, we provide a pattern, but I don't usually, unless it's something that's very complex and it's really important that you get your shape just perfect. I kind of encourage you guys to just go ahead and draw it for yourself because I really do believe that practice makes perfect. And the more you do it, the better you'll be at drawing out your compositions with your paintbrush. I like to call it an underpainting too. Want to kind of map out all the areas of my painting before I add in all the solid color and shading and whatnot. That can be referred to as an underpainting. So that's the way I paint, so that's the way I like to show you guys.
Gotcha. And yeah, we also mentioned you could print out a picture of a real roller skate and use that.
Yeah, for sure. If you really super feel intimidated, you totally can just get on Google Images, look up a roller skate, print that out, and either trace it or grab some transfer paper and just kind of get that outline before you go in with the colors you choose, and of course adding your flowers later. So you can totally do it that way too. But this way everyone's is going to look a little bit different, and that's really, I think, the best part of it. Okay, so now I've got my boot filled in with that mint color. I'm rinsing off my brush. And the next step is painting the background. So I'm going to go ahead, and you can kind of see there's a good bit of layering here. So I'm going to fill in all that pink before I paint in my skate details and my flowers. So the background's going to be this baby pink color. And we're not going to do any mixing. This is just going to be straight out of the bottle. It's a really pretty pink, so it's perfect for this painting. And you can see, again, I'm painting on one of our plaid surfaces tonight. So the inner part of this wood canvas is 8 by 10. So it's the same size as my original canvas. It just has this added frame, which I think is really fun and really versatile. You can do so many different projects with it. It's great for just painting like this, like we're doing tonight. You can buy this frame as well as our kit that we're using tonight. The water basin, you can get all of this stuff right on plaidonline.com. I'm going to go right up to the edge of my skate. Want to make sure there's no wood showing by the time we're done with this pink layer or canvas, whichever you're working on.
Yeah, this surface is kind of nice because it creates like a natural border around it. And if you were to, paint over that line, you're not going to necessarily get it on that border because there's the gap in the middle.
Yeah, there's like a little, like a moat or something, like almost around the edge. So.
A moat is how I was going to describe it as well.
That's where my brain goes. But it is really great. It's like you get a free frame. You don't have to worry about framing your canvas later because it's already attached. So this is a really awesome surface.
Yeah, you could go back and paint the frame later. You could extend the florals onto it if you wanted.
Absolutely. You do some treasure gold and make
Yeah.
it look like a real gold frame. That'd be pretty. You could put glitter on it if you wanted to. That'd be fun for this painting. Lots of different ways you can embellish the frame. I'm just using my flat brush. Oh, in case I didn't mention it, sorry. I'm using a 3/4 inch flat brush. I'm not sure if I said that. So just a little bit bigger, just so we can cover more area more quickly. And I'm just using the edge to carefully go right up to the boot of my skate to make sure all of the surface is covered in paint. But yes, Steven, I highly recommend you see the Barbie movie. It was really great.
It's on my list. I want to see that. I want to see Oppenheimer. Everybody's talking about those two movies together.
Yep. I was a big Barbie fan. I was a 90s kid, so lots of Barbies. It was like the greatest movie ever. It was great for all ages, though, really. It was great for adults and kids. I would definitely recommend it to my nieces. It was just a great story.
I was a early 2000s kid, and so we were on to Bratz by that point.
Gotcha. Very different vibe for sure. Not the same.
Same idea, just different fonts, right?
Yeah. Different shape heads.
That's true.
Okay, we're coming up on the end of our background here, and then I am going to go ahead, I'm going to just kind of touch up the edges, make sure it's all covered, and then I'm going to go and hit it with my hairdryer for a little bit so we can start painting all of the other details on top. So I'm just going to make sure I get right up to the edge. Just using the edge of my brush. It's a really perfect straight edge. Nice firm bristles on these folk art brushes, so it's perfect for painting these super straight lines and getting really steady lines, I should say, around the edges. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rinse off my brush, and like I said, I'm going to dry it a little bit with my hairdryer just to speed up the process. And whenever I use a hairdryer in my painting, I always go on the highest air setting, and then I tend to toggle back between hot and cold. So a really great way to gauge whether your paint is dry when you're using our folk art matte acrylics is that when you tilt your painting, if there's any sheen whatsoever, you know that it's still a little bit wet, because since our paint is so matte, you will never see a sheen once the paint is dry. So if there's a little bit of a shine there in any of the spots, you know that it's still wet and you need to keep drying. So I don't see any now though. I'm pretty much all dry, so we're gonna go ahead and keep on moving along.
That's a good tip.
Yeah.
We had a viewer who just logged on and they asked, did you trace the skate? No, Jesse freehanded this. Pretty simple shapes, but we brought up earlier if you wanted to go on Google Images and print out a picture of a roller skate to trace, you could, but we did not do that today.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to start adding some details to our skates before we move on to the flower. So we're going to paint the sole of our skate. And to do that, we're going to use our aqua color. I've already got aqua on my palette, so I'm not going to add any more, but if you need to, go ahead and do that now. I'm going to grab my number 10 flat brush. This is the one that we kind of did our outline with. And I'm going to pick up some aqua. And I'm going to use the width of my brush as a guide for how thick my sole is going to be. So what I mean by that is I'm not going to put down very much pressure because I want it to be a pretty even line. I'm going to put down about a medium amount of pressure, and I'm going to follow the bottom edge going from left to right because I'm right-handed. If you're left-handed, you'll probably be going from right to left. And I'm just going to do a steady line following the base of our boot. So I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to start here at the back, and I'm going to follow that edge and picking up more paint if you need it. If you're painting on a canvas, you should be able to get all the way to the end before you need to reload your brush. Since I'm working on raw wood, it's not primed or gessoed at all. It's very absorbent, and so it kind of picks up more paint than a primed canvas would, so that's why I had to reload. So you can see, just really steady, hardly put any pressure on your brush, follow that line, and you get the base of your skate. So now when you think about it on a roller skate, kind of how it's assembled and how it really, all of the mechanics work, there's the boot itself, and then it's got the sole, and a lot of times, especially the more vintage looking skates, it has that heel before the part of the skate that the wheels are attached to. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to paint the heel in. I'm going to go about a ½ an inch below the sole that we just painted, and just paint in a little rectangular shape right here. And that's going to be the heel of our skate. So just like that. Nothing crazy. It's kind of looking like an ice skate right now to me before we add the wheels on. And then the last part of this, we're going to go from the base of our heel and do a perfectly straight line, no curve, to meet the front of our sole. So it's this part here that we're going to eventually attach our wheels to. So just like we did before, I'm going to go right on the sole, and I'm going to drag it to the right. I'm going to go as straight as I can. Don't worry if it's not perfect. And I'm going to go right over here towards the toe of our skate. Here we go. So it should look something like this. How's everybody doing with that, Steven?
I think we're doing good.
Awesome. Okay, and then the last part right now that we're going to do with our aqua is just this our little break here in the front. I'm not sure what the technical term for it is, the stopper, the way you stop when you're skating. And I'm just going to do a little rectangle there that we're going to eventually attach the little rubber piece to. So just right there, a little bit coming down so that it's something to hook on to later on. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rinse my brush off. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint this it's kind of like a highlight. It's at the bottom of our boot just to give it a little dimension. And to make this color, we're going to take the mint color we mixed before and add more white to it. So I've got some here, but I definitely need to remix it. So I'm going to grab some white, a little bit of aqua, a little bit of yellow, and I'm pretty close to the mint color, but now of course I need more white because I want it to be really pale. I want it to be a good bit lighter than the boot itself. So I'm going to grab a little more white on my palette. Okay, that's pretty good. So I'm going to wipe all that excess paint off. Remember, we don't want all that extra on our brush while we're painting. And the reason we don't want all that extra paint on our brush is because you want to be able to control the way our paint is going onto our canvas. And if we have a big glob of paint on our brush, we really can't control the lines and the shapes that our brush is making. There's just too much paint. So I'm going to put a little bit less paint on my brush here. And I'm going to go around the bottom edge. So we followed the line to make the sole. I'm going to go right above that now. I don't want to cover up my aqua color. I want to cover up just the mint color, but I'm going to follow that aqua color and do another line along the bottom of the boot. And at the back here, I'm going to widen it a little. I kind of went up the heel, you can see here. Make it a little bit wider, about 2 times the width of this brush that I'm using is how thick this line will be. And then it kind of comes down to a point towards the toe. It gets kind of narrow again. Okay. And that just adds a little extra detail, makes it look a little bit more dimensional. So now I'm going to continue letting my aqua dry a little more before we add the pink wheels. So I'm going to paint in the laces. So to do that, I'm going to grab a round brush. This is a number 10 round brush. And I'm going to grab some aqua on my brush, and you can see here what I'm doing with it. I'm going to put it on my palette and I'm going to twirl it. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to get that perfectly sharp tip. So you can see we have kind of a wide round brush here, but we're going to be making really thin lines. So you can really use a round brush to make any thickness of line you want. It's all about how much pressure you put on it. So if I put a very little amount of pressure, I'm going to get a very thin line. If I put a lot of pressure on my brush, I'm going to get a thick line. So I can show you what I mean here. I'll do it on my palette. If I put hardly any pressure, I can get a super nice thin line. But if I put lots of pressure, if I push down, I get a really thick line. So we're going to kind of play with that while we make our laces. You can practice a little on your plate or your palette or whatever it is you're using, but we want to get really thin lines for these laces. So I'm going to twirl to get that nice point. And I'm going to go and I'm going to start at the top, about 1 inch off of the front of our boot. I'm going to go through and make little laces. And I'm making them as thin as I can. And just put as many laces as you can fit. Until you get all the way down to the toe. Okay, I think that's enough. So now I'm going to rinse my brush off. I'm just making sure there's no more aqua I need to paint. I think we're done with that color for now. And I'm going to go ahead and I am going to hit it with a hairdryer just because I want my aqua to be really dry when I paint my pink so my colors don't mix. So I'm going to dry it really quick. Okay, so that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab our bright pink. This is one of my favorite colors in the kit. I'm going to put some on my palette, and this is the color we're going to use for our wheels and for our little rubber brake there. It's a super, super bright color. Perfect if you're inspired by Barbie like I am. So I'm going to grab my larger flat brush. This is my 3/4 inch flat brush. And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how I'm going to paint these circles. Since we've already been asked about patterns a lot, I have a feeling I'm about to be asked why we're not using patterns for the circles. But it's because I have complete faith in you guys that you can paint them yourself. I'm going to scooch Steven's beautiful paints. He had them so nicely a little bit, so I have more room. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and load my brush. And I'm going to practice here on my palette. So I'm holding my brush perpendicular to my surface. So you can see that's how I'm holding my brush. I'm tapped down so you can see the way I'm holding it. Up and down. And I'm going to pull to the left and make a C. And then I'm going to pull to the right and make a C. And that's how we're going to get that circle. I'll show you again. Tap down. You can see where my brush is. I'm not really moving my brush. I'm just twisting it. I'm putting some pressure and I'm just twisting it to get that perfect circle. So feel free to do some practices of that. I know it can take some practice, but I also know you guys can do it. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move on to my painting. And I'm going to kind of mark the center of where I want my wheels to be so I don't go rogue and place them where I don't want them. So here, that's the center. So I'm going to go right above that when I start my wheel. So I'm going to tap down. That's where I want it to be. That's going to be the top. That's where my wheel is going to hit. I'm going to pull to the left. And then I'm going to pull to the right. And that is going to be, oh, that is going to be the shape of our wheel. Now the same thing over here. I marked it there, so I'm going to tap at the top. I have a little water on my brush, hang on. My brush is still a little bit wet and I don't want to have that water in there because I want to get a nice opaque circle. You can see, I can see that it was wet there. Okay, load my brush again. Start there, I'm gonna pull to the left. I'm not moving my brush, I'm just twisting it. And then I'm going to pull to the right, not moving my brush, just twisting it. And you can see, you know, you need to fill it in a little bit sometimes if you didn't press down hard enough or if you didn't have enough paint on your brush. But it really does give you that perfect shape so that you can kind of fill it in later on. Really super simple way to paint circles. And then the larger your brush is, the larger your circle will be. And the smaller your brush is, the smaller your circle will be. So depending on what size circles you're painting in the future, whatever painting you may be making, you just want to use the size of brush that's kind of like almost twice the width of your circle. Or sorry, I should say half the width of your circle. Your circle will be twice the width. Okay, so now that we've got our wheels in there, we're gonna go ahead and paint this little stopper, and this one's much simpler. It's a square, so we're just gonna make a little square mark. We're gonna use the width of our brush as a guide, same brush, and just make a little rectangular shape there. Alrighty. Also, with our hot pink, you can make a little shadow under your skate here. So I'm going to take my hot pink, I still have some on my brush, and I'm going to mix a little bit of baby pink into it so it's not so bright. It's not so bright popping off of our background there. About a 1-to-1 ratio. And I'm just going to kind of go left to right, and I'm going to sort of like scrub in this shadow.
Kenny says that it's already looking cute.
Oh, thanks, Kenny. You can go darker if you need to. Just sort of, you can see I'm kind of scrubbing in that color. Just to make a really subtle shadow. To make it look like our roller skate's not floating in the air, it's sitting on something. Okay, so you can see also in our final one, it's a little darker. That's because we're gonna go add some red into our wheels later, but I'm gonna let them dry first. Now it is time to move on to our flowers while we kind of let this half of our painting dry. So the first color we're going to need for our flowers is red. So I'm going to grab some red. We've got 2 reds in the kit. We've got apple red and cardinal red. For this one I'm going to use apple. Apple is more of a bright, true red color. And I'm going to grab my 1/2 inch flat brush. So we're going to start by painting this largest flower, and then we're going to kind of fill in that bouquet around it. So I'm going to grab some red on my brush, some apple red, and I'm going to start on the bottom so I know exactly where, how far I want to go down my skate. I don't want to cover up too much of my skate, but I do want to look like it's layered, like our flowers are sort of pouring out of the skate. So I'm going to say the middle of my flower is going to be around there. You know, I like to mark off where things are going to be. So I'm just going to use the width of my brush for petals. I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm going to pull up, and I'm always going to hit the center that I just marked. I'm going to go all around creating petals just with the width of my brush. Create this really bold red flower. Okay, so that we're going to start there. We're going to leave it for a minute. We're going to go back and add a little bit of details. But next we're going to do some more mixing. I'm going to mix some orange colors to make up these smaller flowers around it. So I already got red on my brush. We know what to add. We need to put a little bit of yellow. I'm running out of space in my palette. So red and yellow, of course. I'm going to get a nice orange color here. So we're going to use this for some of the smaller flowers here. So I'm going to use the width of my brush, and I'm going to do smaller flowers. So I'm kind of going to go, I'm going to use it to kind of just smush down. I'm not moving my brush at all. I kind of have it at an angle, and I'm just going to smush the bristles down to get these nice little petal shapes. And I'm going to do that all around and to make kind of a star so that we get this nice little flower. And I'm going to do a few of those. And they can spill off your canvas. And then I'll do some bigger ones. I think I'm going to add a little bit more yellow. You just want kind of a variety of different shades. You can kind of select what color you want your flowers to be, just so they're not all the same color. I'm kind of sticking in like the warm reds family, so it really is contrasted from our bright pinks and aquas down here. So I'm just going to do bigger ones, same technique, but I'm just going to do larger petals. I have my paintbrush sideways, and I'm smushing down. And then I think I'm going to add some, you want to leave room for leaves too, so keep that in mind when you're making your little bundle of flowers or your little bouquet, that you want to save a little bit of room for leaves, to just add some greenery in there to make it look full. I'm going to put a little more yellow on my palette. I'm going to paint in some little tiny yellow flowers. You know what, I'm actually going to grab a smaller brush. I'm going to grab my number 10 flat for this one. So same thing, but I'm going to do tiny yellow flowers. I'm kind of smushing my petals down. This is just a really, really simple way to paint tiny flowers. So it's great if you're making a big bouquet and you're just trying to fill in a little space and add a little pop. You don't have to worry about, you know, lots of details in your flowers. It's just a really simple way to add in a little bunch. Okay, so I think that's good. I think I'm happy with that. I'm going to leave those shapes there and start blocking in some of my greenery. I'm going to hang on to my number 10 flat, and I'm going to grab some classic green. You know, I'm going to get a new palette too. I'm going to slide this one away in case I need it. And I've got another fresh one underneath. Some classic green. And then I'm also going to grab some navy. And like I said, I'm going to be using my number 10 flat brush. So I'm going to start with my classic green, and I'm going to paint in some leaves. So I'm just going to have them coming off of the flowers, and I'm just going to keep it really simple and do just really classic leaf shapes. So like when you think of a leaf, you think of that, you know, leaf or football-y sort of shape. We're just going to use our brush to paint this shape. And I'm going to add them where they make sense, kind of coming off the flowers. And of course, like I said before, you can go off your canvas, that's okay. I'm going to add some in between, some little dabs of green. This look like it's really full in there. Just kind of putting in that color. And then I'm also going to paint some of these little sprigs of leaves. So I'll show you how I do that. I'm going to use the same brush. I'm going to get a nice flat, I'm kind of pulling my brush so I flatten out the tip of my bristles. Because we're going to do the same thing. Remember what we did with our round brush to get these thin lines? We're going to do the same thing with our flat brush, but of course, just with a wider edge. So I'm kind of going to hold my brush. I'm not going to put any pressure on it, hardly any, I should say. And I'm going to paint this stem for my little sprig. I'm going to put another one down here just like in my original painting. Oop, I got a little wide there, a little wider than I was planning. And that's because I pressed down too hard, so you can see kind of the difference between what can happen. And now I'm going to paint in my leaves. So I'm going to use my brush to smush my little leaf shapes. I'm kind of just touching my brush down and then pressing, touching my brush down and then pressing. And the same thing for this other sprig. How's everybody doing, Steven?
I think we're doing good. We got a lot of people that say this is cute.
Good.
We're glad that you guys like it.
Awesome. Okay. So I like the way that looks. And now I'm going to add one more sprig, but you can see this one's a little bit darker. And to do that, I'm going to mix my green with a little bit of navy just to darken it. So we get this like really pretty deep green color, like a forest green. Yeah. That's really pretty. Okay. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to get all that excess paint off my brush so I can get a nice thin line. And I'm going to go right in the front here, just like my original one. And then I'm going to paint my leaves in. And then while I have this dark green on my brush, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some dimension to some of my leaves at the top. And I'm just going to add like a little stroke of this deep green to the bottom of some of my leaves. And you can see since they're kind of still wet, it blends together a little. And it just looks like a shadow. It looks like a little bit more dimension on these leaves. They don't look so flat. I'm just going to add some of it in here. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to do with this particular color is you can see we have a little bit of a shadow down here on the base of our skates. We're going to move back down there with this color, and I'm kind of just going to outline the sole and then go under the bottom of the base of our boot. I'm just going to follow the edge of that sole that we did way back when. And the same thing for the bottom down here. Right underneath our skate. Okay. All right. I'm gonna rinse my brush off. And then one more thing, I'm gonna add some red to my wheels. They're much more dry now, so I'm gonna grab some red from my original palette and move it over here so it's easier to work with. And I'm gonna use this as sort of like the shadow color. So I'm gonna go kind of make a big stroke down the bottom of my skate. You can see I'm just going to do just like that. Right along the bottom. And then I'm going to pick up some of my bright pink too and just kind of like blend it in. So I haven't cleaned off my brush. I'm just going to pick up that bright pink and just blend it. So it's not quite such a harsh line. Go right over that wet red. And then I'm going to do a little bit of a shadow on my little stopper here too. And then blend that. Okay. Now we're coming up towards the end of our painting. I'm going to go ahead and add some more details to our boot and to our flowers. So I've got my navy still here on my palette. I'm going to grab my round brush again. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of navy, and you can see I have it at the very tip of my brush. I have that really pointy edge, that really pointy tip, and I'm going to make the little eyelets at the edges of our laces. So I'm just doing a little C right on the edge there. Little C shapes, just so it looks like the laces are attached to something. They're not just floating out there. And then I'm also going to use the exact same brush, the same technique, and I'm going to add some little dots to the center of my flowers just to give them some more detail. And then I'm going to add the centers of my wheels, and that is going to be the last step of our painting. So I'm going to just do a little circle right here in the center. And then, of course, you want to sign your painting. Use a brush or a pen, a paint pen, whatever you like to use. And that is our super cute floral roller skate. Do we have any questions, Stephen, before we finish up?
I don't think we have any questions. I think,
Awesome.
like I mentioned earlier, lots of people say this is a cute painting. I think it turned out great.
Awesome.
And it's perfect for the Barbie movie.
Cool. Well, great, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I always have a blast painting with you guys. Don't forget, you can purchase this kit as well as this surface on plaidonline.com. Thanks for watching this Barbie-inspired roller skate with me. We're here the first Thursday of every month, so we'll see you next time. Bye.